This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so everything is good to go. We're recording. Can everybody see my screen? It should have a title page of Denise's presentation. So you should see Strengthening for Runners, Smith PT. Just go ahead and type in yes if you can see that. So we make sure the technology is working tonight. Fantastic. So we're going to jump in, and I've got Denise Smith, who is a certified physical therapist and owner of Smith Physical Therapy and Running Academy in Crystal Lake, Illinois, so here in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I'm excited to have her join us tonight because I feel like a conversation around strength training and how that can really take your training to the next level is appropriate, certainly at this time of year. Denise, we have individuals that are either listening currently or will be joining at a later time and listening to the recording who are training for the Chicago Marathon, the New York City Marathon, the Marine Corps Marathon. We have athletes that are participating in the Rock and Roll Philadelphia Half Marathon, the San Francisco Giant 10K and Half Marathon, which is a pretty cool event, and some smaller races as well. But the emails that I get on a daily basis really focus on two different topics really. One, nutrition, as you can imagine, and then also injury prevention, which I think leads right into strength training and strengthening for runners. So I'm excited to have Denise share her expertise tonight. Not only is Denise a physical therapist by trade, she's obviously a business owner, but she is a running technique specialist and really works with people on a daily basis, runners on a daily basis, to make sure that their running technique and running form is honed in for to optimize efficiency and to certainly minimize the risk for injury. But she has a lot of experience in working with athletes and strength training, and so she's got a lot of valuable information to share tonight. And she also has a little mini plan built into her presentation, and then also, I believe, a challenge for all of you to take on and implement into your training. I think everything, I've looked through the presentation, I think everything that she's going to share tonight is not only one, relevant, but two, can easily be intermixed into your running training starting tomorrow. So I hope everybody takes something from this. I think they will. And without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Denise. Thanks, Denise.
Well, thanks for inviting me to do this. And it's a very impressive list of all the races that your runners have coming up. So congratulations to all of you guys on your plans to do this. And like Seth said, well, actually, this is our third year, Seth, doing this?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, great. Seth has been a very good friend to me personally. I love his family and a very good friend to my clinic too. So it's always fun to do these for me. And I'm a total running nerd. Sorry, I'm totally going to geek out on some of this stuff. I think that there's a lot out there that runners think they know, and they're right on a lot of stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that they just don't know. And I think if every year, 82% on average, 82% of recreational runners are injured every year. And so my goal before I die is to get that number down to 50%. And I think the lack of knowledge that runners has is just a reflection of our industry and not teaching you guys enough. So I think it's interesting that concussions only make up 1% of football injuries, but all we talk about when we hear about football injuries is concussions. So I think as an industry and as a sport, if we can really get the conversation going around injury prevention, we can see this great sport get the acknowledgement that it needs. I always tell my high school and middle school runners, we do a sport that every other sport uses as punishment. So we should give it the respect that it needs and treat our bodies like any other sport or any other athlete does in preparation. So that's my goal in this talk, is to just give you guys as much information as I can. And so two of the reasons that most runners get injured every year is poor technique and poor strength training. And again, this is usually a lack of knowledge. And so I want to try to answer any questions that you guys have I'm sorry for the background noise. They're cutting our yard outside. But you may ask yourself, well, isn't running the same thing as strength training? And it's not. So I'll ask a lot of my runners, well, what do you do for strength training? And they'll say, well, I run. And that's like asking a football player or a quarterback, do you strength train? And he says, well, I just throw the ball more. So it just to give you a comparison there, a good quarterback will work out in the gym a couple days a week to build up the endurance of his muscles and improve his strength. So as runners, we have to be strong enough to withstand some of those forces that act on our body. Gravity is one of them. Gravity can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. And ground reaction force is how, when you hit the ground, the reaction that it gives back to you, or that force it gives back to you. And that usually is detrimental and not helpful. So gravity you can use to your advantage, but ground reaction force, your body just has to be strong enough or you will get hurt. But when you use proper form, like I said, gravity can help you. And so we could have another conversation another day about how your body position can maximize gravity. But we want to make sure that you guys understand in this how being weak can make injuries happen faster. So we want to be able to help you guys run faster, run longer, run without pain, and that usually revolves around your body's, your muscles' ability to withstand forces that are out there. So, and again, one takeaway if somebody were to ask you what this is about, what did you learn? I just want you to be able to say running is not the same thing as strengthening. So I think that there might be some pictures that go along with this one, Seth. Yeah. So I think this is where people get confused. Like, well, okay, I know I need a strength train, but I don't really know what to do. And so I want to help you guys understand the difference. A lot of us will go to the gym and do a couple machines and then leave and feel like we had a good workout. Now that I will take that over nothing, but that alone can't really help. And just doing some isolated things or functional isolated things like just squats or just lunges or just push-ups isn't enough on its own either. So if you can hybrid those two, so isolate certain muscle groups as part of your workout and work on functional movements like squats, lunges, push-ups, that hybrid not only makes it a very effective workout, but also makes it a little more fun so that you don't feel like you're just going from machine to machine to machine, or you're not just putting a ton of stress on certain joints because you feel like you have to. So I want to teach you guys how to do a little bit of both. So the most important muscles to strengthen, and that's the other thing is, again, you guys are going to say, well, I don't know exactly what to do. And I want to help you understand why these muscle groups are important and be able to look at them and say, all right, so I see in this magazine that they have recommended these 3 exercises. I understand why I need to strength train my hips. As a runner, does that seem like a fun activity for me? Does it seem like it would help? Great, I'll do it. But if they're telling you to do isolated bicep curls as a runner, you may look at that exercise and be like, I know my shoulders are important to working out, but I don't really see how me curling this weight up. Yes, it's fun. I like it. So I don't mind adding it into my routine. But if I'm really trying to be efficient, I'm going to find a different way to use my whole arm like I would in running. So again, that's what I want you guys to understand from this is how to strength train and what to strength train. So the main groups are your hips, which are anything surrounding your pelvis, your hamstrings, which are those big muscles in the back of your thigh. Your core is basically anything from your knees to your shoulders. So that includes your abdominal muscles, your inner thighs, your outer thighs, your hamstrings, your quads. And so don't just think, everyone thinks the core is just their stomach muscles or their abs. It's way more than that. It's incorporating your back muscles too. The muscle elasticity is that bounce that we have naturally. So if I were to tell you guys to stand up and jump in place or run in place, there's this natural lightness that we see. Imagine a boxer who's warming up and kind of moving from side to side really quickly, and they look really light on their feet. That muscle elasticity all of us have. The problem is that we lose it as we age, and we lose it because of society demands. So the sheer amount of sitting we do is awful in our society. And so that sitting makes us very stagnant, and we lose that lightness, that bounciness that is part of us, which is a natural energy source that can help us when we're running. So we want to look at how to strength train these 4 core groups. And there's simple things like squats that you can do. I love squats. I know I'm weird, but squats are great. Hops and jumps. I hate burpees. So does that make me weird?
No, that makes you normal.
Okay. A patient got me a shirt that said burpees hate you too. So hops and jumps are things that, like jump roping, agility ladders. I have 2 kids, and so sometimes when we're outside and I'm trying to get them to work out with me and just be active, I'll draw a like a hopscotch board on the ground or an agility ladder, and we just do agility drills, like who can get through it the fastest, who can do it all on one leg. And we'll do things like jumps onto the porch, on and off the porch, or jump roping contests. So those little things that I think we stop doing as we get older can be really fun and can be just as efficient of a workout as running an extra 2 miles, but train those components that we need. Now, a little aside here, if you're a female, this is sometimes hard for us because either after having kids or some other issues, we don't like hopping or jumping because of incontinence issues. It's embarrassing sometimes, but it is something that we need to talk about too in our industry that I don't think we're willing to talk about enough. And so I think females, again, we can have a conversation offline on this. If you find that you have some of that incontinence is limiting your running or limiting your training because you just don't want to wear a pad or you don't like how you feel after you've had some issues, it's never normal to pee your pants. We don't let our kids pee our pants, so we shouldn't be doing it either. So it's a conversation worth having with a women's health specialist. PTs specialize in this. So if you guys, any women out there, if you guys want to talk about it, let's talk about it. Because again, I think as an industry, it's something we should address, that women need to be stronger in their pelvic floor to help keep everything around them strong. Your abs won't fire the right way. Your low back won't fire the right way. So if you have this chronic low back pain that won't go away, we might have to look at your pelvic floor as part of that reason. So sorry for that little aside.
No, that's important.
Seth and all the other guys in the group. Ab and back strength. I think a lot of us really like doing planks or sit-ups, but I sometimes think we forget about our low back. Push-ups. You may ask me, why does a runner have to do push-ups? But your shoulders are a very important part of running technique. A lot of us will lock our shoulders down and back, and then it almost limits how much our upper body helps our lower body. And so push-ups are a really great way to strengthen your shoulders in a functional way and be time efficient with it. And then hip dips, my mentor, Dr. Nicholas Romanoff, he didn't invent these, but he really educated me on how to do them efficiently. And so I think I put this in part of your guys' challenge. One of my favorite exercises for runners, hands down. So let's talk about squats real quick. I don't know if any of you guys have, and you can comment on this. If you have little kids and you watch the way they squat, they make it look so easy, and they don't complain about knee pain or low back pain when they squat, and they could sit in a squat position the whole time. They're balanced, they're in control. But as we age, I think we look to do other things. So one of my biggest issues is with squats. So if you look at the picture on the left, the guy is squatting. He looks great. His knees are behind his toes, his hips don't have to go below parallel. Just for the record, I know some of us that do CrossFit, they really push us to get our hips below parallel, but you do not have to do that. You can just bring your hips down to a chair. His back is nice and straight. He's not looking down. His head's in a good position. It's just this weight on the heels part that I don't love. So yes, it's a way to squat, but a lot of us will do that as a stability mechanism. We'll shift all of our weight onto our heels. And what happens is that it shifts your body weight behind the line of gravity. And what will happen is if you stack too much weight on you, or you are not strong enough to hold this, you may fall backwards. And we need to really work on, can you imagine if you were playing basketball, that or volleyball or tennis, and I were to tell you to get into the ready position, you would feel the weight on the front half of your foot. Your heels would still be down. You'd be ready to move either way. That feeling of weight on the front half of your foot is a great way to test your balance, your strength, your stability when you go down into a squat. Can you shift your weight from the front part of your foot to the back foot and be stable in any position? That's really important for runners. And so don't always feel like you have to shift the weight on the back of your heels, especially if you're having knee pain. Try moving it to the front. Again, you should be able as an athlete to quickly change positions without it being too challenging. So right now, you guys do not have to get your hips below parallel. Try just getting your butt to touch a chair, and try single leg. We always forget about one leg stuff, and as runners, we're only ever on one leg. So try some of these activities on one leg. Don't be afraid to squat on one leg. If that also means you have to hold on, great. I'd rather it looks good and you're in control and you don't go very deep versus being really wobbly and forcing yourself to go lower than you can control. Okay, thanks. So squats, the main muscle group that you're working with a squat are your quads and your glutes. So your quads job when you land is to basically support you. So when we are running, our body, because of the ground reaction force and the forces that gravity play on our bodies, we have to absorb 3 times our body weight. Now, if you're sprinting or going faster, it's higher. It's more like 5 times your body weight. So if you're 100 pounds, every time you land, your body has to absorb 300 pounds. And so that's a lot of stress. And if your muscles aren't strong enough to tolerate that, that's why injuries start to happen, or that's why we might see stress fractures. So strengthening can help prevent that stuff. We want to try getting the weight on the balls of your feet, get that butt back to maintain that good squat position. And so you can see there's a picture of me here. Obviously, I'm not going very deep because I'm up on a step, but I'm nice and controlled. I'm trying to slowly control my lowering down. And the girl on the right, she's doing an overhead squat, so hands up over her head with a weighted bar. We're trying to get the same thing, but you might have to adjust it because of your skill level, and that's okay. A good squat where you're trying to get your butt back and you're stable on your foot is better than a sloppy squat where you're going to hurt yourself. And I know everyone's seen a sloppy squat where somebody's knees are caving in or their hips are dropping or they're really unstable. No sloppy squats. And if you guys have questions, by the way, I know I'm talking fast, just submit, do it through the chat function. I would love to answer anyone's questions as we go, or take notes and we can answer some of these at the end. Hops or jumps, this is what I was talking about, with just ways of moving our body that's really fun. It's different training, but it gives us that elasticity that our body misses as we age or because we sit for so long. So we want to use that rhythmic nature that happens through our muscles, that lightness. And so things like box or step jumps, like I said, I use our porch to do that. Jumping rope, both feet, 1 foot. I'll sometimes do jump ropes while I'm running. So I'm running forward and I'm jump roping, and then I'll drop the rope and keep running. That's always kind of a fun one. And then these ankle weight pulls. So I have in that picture on the right, I have a 5-pound ankle weight on my ankle, and I'm quickly pulling my foot. As soon as it touches the ground, I'm pulling it back up. So I get this lightness and this timing down to get that rhythm, which is what we want. I'm not sure if any of you ever experienced a hamstring strain, where it's deep in the muscle belly or high up in your tush, right where the hamstring inserts into your sit bones. If any of you have ever had a hamstring strain or pull or had that high hamstring pain, just let me know. But this exercise is a great one. And what you can do is put an ankle weight on, and I'm going to turn on an app on my phone. It's a free app that I downloaded. It's a metronome app. So any of you musicians out there, and what you can do is set the metronome to like 90 or 80, depending on what you need. And you're going to focus just on your right leg to start. And what you do, so you can hear that metronome. Every time you hear that beat, I want your foot underneath you pulling up. So If you look at that picture on the right, my foot is in that position every single time you hear that beat. So this is great for anybody that's had a hamstring issue. It's a really great way to strength train because the hamstring, along with the Achilles, are two groups that love rhythm. They don't do well when we aren't in sync every single time. So it's a really great workout. The challenge with this for the hamstring is making sure that you're focusing on pulling your foot off the ground versus driving your knee. So you should feel that in your hamstring. And I can send more pictures out if anyone needs some additional information on that, but making sure you're really curling that foot up to make the hamstring do its job is that rhythmic. And then what you could always do is up it to 180 and try doing this in place with both feet. And does one leg feel weaker than the other? Do you feel a delay on one side? Do you fatigue really easily? It's a really fun activity. If you don't like the tick, tick, ting, you can pick your favorite song that's at 170 or 180 beats per minute. Rock Lobster by the B-52s, always a favorite. So. Are there any questions so far? Are we doing okay? I haven't seen anyone pop up yet. Okay. So ab and back strength, this is again where there's a lot of exercises out there in the running materials, online, on Pinterest, where you can try ab and back strengthening. And these are just two that I picked because they're not ones you see all the time. We see a lot of crunches, a lot of flutter kicks. That kind of stuff is great, and I think we should keep doing it. Planks, all great exercises. Yoga is great for ab and back strength. Pilates, all great. So I just want you guys to forget to do it. And that realizing that your abs and your back connect your upper and your lower body. And so that core stability, the more stable you are through your core, the more control you'll have through your arms and your legs. So the thing that this also incorporates is balance work. So standing on one leg, are you stable enough through your whole entire body to stand on one leg? I should have put a slide up about balance work, but again, we're always on one leg. So are you stable enough? Does your core work well enough with everything else that you could stand on one leg? So we want that stability through everything to support. And what will happen is when we move our legs, but we keep the rest of our body still. So the one on the left is where you're starting with your legs up in the air and pulling them up. Now, some people with really strong abs or low back can bring their legs all the way down to the floor. I didn't want people thinking that was the expectation. So any movement through here. And the one where you're on your stomach, where you're lifting your feet and your back into extension, what that really does is that helps on making your hips work in relationship to your abs, or your glutes work in relationship to your abs and your low back. So these are exercises you don't see very often that are really effective to do, and you can make harder or easier depending on your skill level. Again, another favorite, my favorite, I know it's weird, I like push-ups. I hate burpees, but I like push-ups. It's a great way to assess your strength. And a lot of people will say, well, I'm not strong enough to do a push-up. Well, put your knees down, or start on a wall, or start on a bench where you put your hands on the bench, or start on a table. Whatever you have to do, it's okay. You don't have to do these one-arm push-ups to think that you're good at push-ups. We have to make sure that our upper body is just as strong as our lower body. And that's because as we're running, some really good runners, you'll see their shoulders nice and light. Usain Bolt is the best example of this. He runs so fast that everything he does is magnified. You will really see his shoulders and his whole trunk moving as he's running. And that is a great way to watch how the shoulders can affect and assist the legs. Next time you guys are out running, lock your shoulders down and back, and do not let your arms, you can let your hands move a little bit, but keep your shoulders really tight. And then try doing it where you're nice and light and where you're letting your shoulders help you out, and feel how much lighter you feel on your feet. So we always talk about a spring. You know, a spring will pull up. If you load a spring and then let it go, you'll see it travel together. You don't just see just the bottom part moving or just the top. It moves as a whole, and that's how it's efficient. Our body's like that. That springiness, that lightness that we've been talking about can definitely come out even more with use of your shoulders. And so that concept is called unweighing, when you are using your upper body to help move your lower body. And so push-ups are a great way to work on that, because our view is that when you're doing a push-up, you're trying to push the ground away from you, but we know that can't happen. The joke is that only Chuck Norris could actually do an earth down where the rest of us push up. I think, is there a picture? Did I put a picture of Chuck Norris in here somewhere? Oh, there we go. So what we are really doing is moving our body up. So it's a push up. So we really learning how to use your shoulders to drive your body up versus trying to push the ground down. And so these are two of my favorite ones. A heart push up where your hands are right where your heart would be and you slowly lower your body down and then up. I can get about 10 of those before I need to put my knees down to finish a set. And then the staggered push up is just, again, a different one that a lot of runners could find the functionality of, because I have one arm up and one arm down, similar to when I'm running. I have my hands are moving through space, one arm up and one arm down when I'm running. And so this is a fun way to mimic some of the positions we move through as we are running. All right, here's my other favorite. These are hip dips. I didn't officially make this a challenge for you guys, but here's a good challenge. Do 30 hip dips for 30 days and see how your running feels and see if you feel any stronger as you're going. If hills get easier, if you're not as tired at the end of your run, this is one of my favorite exercises for runners. And I have some runners that refuse to strength train. And so I'll say, fine, can you just do hip dips for me? And usually those runners who, as they fatigue and their form breaks down and they feel like the wheels start to come off at mile 9 or mile 16, when fatigue is at its peak, they have found that they can make it through that second half of the run with just doing hip dips. So I'm not advocating that you guys only do hip dips, but if all I got was one exercise, I would pick this one. It's a total body exercise on my YouTube channel, and I can send it to Seth, a link to our little hip dip variations video, but you can do a lot of different variations on hip dips. I have face down and face up on here. You can put your hands on a step, your feet on a step. You could do one arm up, one leg up, opposite arm and leg up. And what you're doing is you're driving your hips up and then you're driving your hips down. And like I said, you could do it on one foot, on one arm, 1 foot and one arm, face up, sideways. There's so many variations of this, and it's much harder than you guys realize to do this, but your whole body has to move together. Now the variations video has all of them, but the face up hip dips, because it just looks odd for me on a video to be doing these hip dips thrusts into the air. So that's one that's not on the video, but just know that that's an option. It's a fun one, and it helps with your hips understanding where they should be during running. But again, we can talk about positioning when running for a technique talk one time. But this is a great exercise to help train that, and you don't even know you're doing it. So here is the start of my challenge for you guys. Now, so those of you that are doing Chicago, so you have Chicago, you said, is anyone's race coming up in less than 4 weeks?
Less than 4. I don't believe so.
Okay, you can start seeing strength changes in as little as 2 weeks. So I love 4 weeks because I think it's a really great, most people can handle anything for a month. These 30-day challenges most people can handle. So in one of the next slides, you're going to see where I created an initial assessment form where I want you to try as many of these next exercises as you can. And don't feel bad. Don't judge yourself on what your number is. This is literally your initial assessment. So if you were to come into my clinic, we would test this just to see where you're at. And then after a month of working out and focusing on this, can you do more? Are you faster? Do you feel better? Does your pain go away? And that's how we know what progress is. So try for 4 weeks. 3 times a week. A lot of these exercises don't take, by the time you're done with the whole routine, maybe 30 minutes. So do you have 30 minutes 3 times a week to do this? Most of us can. Some of my runners literally don't because they take the train to work or they have kids or other commitments. I understand that. So sometimes I'll say, fine, just take out 1 or 2 miles, just 3 times a week. Your coach will forgive you. If Seth yells at you, just say, Denise, make me do it. That you can replace 1 or 2 miles with time to strength train. You will see the gains far outweigh the missing 1 or 2 miles. You can easily make, the stronger you are, those 1 or 2 miles that you might be missing will be much easier long term if you're strong enough to do it. And what you'll do through the 4 weeks is change either how many you're doing or how much weight you're moving. And then at the end of the 4 weeks, redo it. So here's a little chart I made for you guys. And what you can do is in 30 seconds, how many push-ups can you do? And you could just say, like, your comments could be regular push-ups or had to be on my knees or was on the wall, whatever it was. Did you feel any pain in your shoulder? Did you feel like you only could do, it was really a struggle to get 2 done in 30 seconds, whatever notes to yourself. Then try a single leg squat, right leg and left leg. Do it in front of a mirror so you can make sure you're not cheating. And same thing, comment on it, see where you're at. The hip dips, this is the hardest challenge one you'll do. You'll put your right arm and left leg down. So you've lifted the opposite arm and leg, and see how many hip dips you could do where your butt goes up and then your butt comes down. Most of us will be lucky if we can get 1. But over time, over 4 weeks of doing these, pushing just 1 leg or just 1 arm, or putting your hands on a step or your feet on the step or opposite arm and leg or face up, sideways, whatever, you will see that you can knock out a bunch more 4 weeks later than you could have at the beginning. And then the last one are box jumps. Everyone has a box that they can jump up onto. If you belong to a gym, you'll see things like 6-inch boxes, 12-inch boxes, 18, 20, 24. By the way, I just saw this video today. I'll see if I can send it to Seth to send you guys. I saw it on Instagram, so I don't know how to, excuse me, share it, but it's this kid with no arms. And he's doing a box jump, a 20-inch box jump. And his coaches are yelling at him because they know he can do it, and he nails it after a couple tries. I started bawling my eyes out. Sorry. This kid's amazing to watch. So if you think you can't do a box jump, watch this video of this kid with no arms doing a box jump. If you don't have a box, use your curb. Use a curb that's on the street. Use your first or second step in your house. So maybe make a note. I could only jump up to the first step. And over time, do we see you can maybe get to the second step without a problem? Maybe you start out with both legs because you're not strong enough to do just 1 leg, and then progress yourself. And 4 weeks later, redo it. After doing these exercises 3 times a week, how do you feel? Are you stronger? Do you feel better? Can you do more? Just keep taking notes and see how your progress goes. So mix it up. Don't be afraid to mix up your routines. Again, we get in this rut that we think we just have to run, and you do. I mean, that's an important part of that, but can you add some speed work in it? When Seth puts speed work into your training program, that's a different way to work your heart and lungs. That's another way to build your base or to build the capacity of your lungs and your heart, so that endurance really can come from your heart and your lungs too. Because there's times I'll be running and I'm running fast and there's nothing wrong with my legs. My legs feel great. I'm literally short of breath. And so that's when I'm training. And I don't know about you guys, but I get very caught up in the emotion of a race. So at the start of a race, I will come out hot. Or if I get to a certain part of a race where my husband and I love running Disney races because it's fun. He doesn't love running, so I can at least get him to run those. But we'll get to certain things and both of us will speed up because the adrenaline is there, the excitement of the crowd, you feel that. If you haven't trained your heart and your lungs, it's going to tax you and you're going to start petering out. So that's why he has you doing speed and agility work. I'm also using flexibility training and technique drills are a great way to keep working on strengthening, work on your mileage, work on your form, all of ways to keep you healthy and injury-free, but keeping you progressing towards your goals of increasing your miles. And usually some people ask, well, how long can I increase my weights with strength training? And my general advice is up until 1 week prior to your event. We all know that rule. You don't want to be anything new or different super close to the event. So usually 1 week prior to your race, don't increase your weight anymore. And then the last question I get all the time is, how do I know if there's an injury? And so the thing I want you guys to understand is that pain does not always indicate an injury. Pain may be a warning, or soreness may be a warning that something isn't right. If you start this strength training program and you are sore, like the next day you can't walk, or even 2 days later, you go down the stairs, you're like, oh my God, my quads are so sore. But as you move, you feel better. If you sit on the couch and you watch a movie and then you stand up and you're like, oh, my quads are so sore. But by the time you walk around the house, you're fine. That's usually okay. But if pain is there after squat and it lingers, or it gets worse as you go, and it's kind of right in the joint line, that's when I would recommend seeing a physical therapist to make sure that your form is good and that there isn't something internally that could be going wrong. So if you do squats tomorrow, because you're going to try this challenge and you are super sore, and the next time you try it, you're maybe a little sore, but then that third time you try it, you feel great. You don't have any soreness. That's how you know that it's just soreness and it's not an injury. So don't be afraid to increase your weights, your reps, realizing that you might increase your soreness again, but that's okay. It should get better as you move. It should decrease, as long as it's not this sharp shooting, stabbing pain that may be indicating that something's lurking. Again, there's not necessarily an injury yet, but it's a warning signal to your body. Here's just a little slide on us. If you guys have never had a video analysis done on your form, Seth can put you in contact with me. I'll give you guys 20% off to make sure that your form is good. We want to make sure that, again, runners understand the role that good form has. If you are overstriding or landing ahead of your body weight, or you're not using your shoulders properly, or your butt sticks out a little too much, it will cause an injury over time. So let's really get on good technique. So if anybody wants to do that, we can work on that. We offer physical therapy at our clinic, as well as if somebody just has questions, they either want to talk on the phone or they want to come in and have me just take a look at what's going on. That's called the discovery session. I can do that too, just to help get you on the right track. And so if you have a team that works out with you guys and you all want to send me a video, we can work on that too. So anything I can do to help you keep going. My biggest fear is that you guys have scheduled these races. It might have been months ago, it might have been a last minute decision, and then you can't run because of pain. I hate that story. I hate when that happens to you guys. So whatever I can do to help keep you on the road, help you meet your goals, I would love to be able to do for you. So let's open it up to questions or comments or thoughts. If anybody has any thoughts on this stuff, if there's anybody that's currently strength training, maybe comment on what gains you've noticed. Or if you're nervous to strength train, let's talk about ways to help get you a little more confident. There's a lot of great strength training coaches out there, personal trainers of various levels. So if it's too intimidating sometimes to work out with a trainer, or if you don't even know where to start, I have some great resources I can point you to just give you a little more confidence in knowing what to do. Or Seth, if you have any comments, we should maybe talk about Seth's thoughts on strength training.
Yeah, I think strength training is every bit as important as running. It's in any sort of training plan, and in the programs that the folks that are on the call or going to be listening later have received, there's strength training built in. I would be curious to ask your thoughts, and just so I think it would be helpful for everybody to understand. People may be listening right now and they see the assessment, the progression, the challenge, and they're excited about it, but maybe they're a little nervous as well. And so I think it's important to point out that modifications are available for all these exercises, right? And we may have people who literally have a hard time just balancing on one leg. and don't have that type of stability, that type of motor control. And so, can you just talk a little bit, Denise, about uh, you know modifying the exercises if needed, and generally speaking, how long it takes before you start seeing, I guess, and you mentioned like 2 to 4 weeks before you start seeing and feeling changes, but just talk about like maybe that person who loves the idea of single leg squats. And I agree, you're always on one leg when you're running, you're never on 2 feet at one time, but like that person who has a hard time balancing on one leg, and then just taking them from that to somebody who is, doing not easily, but just can efficiently knock out pistol squats.
I hate those people that can efficiently knock out pistol
Yeah,
squats.
right.
I don't know if any of you guys have follow Seth's wife on Instagram. First of all, I love following her on Instagram because she's very real. But sometimes she knocks out these like push-ups, handstand push-ups. I'm always like, I just want to tell her how much I appreciate the fact that she pushes her body that hard. So if you guys ever want someone great to inspire you, follow Coach Karen because she's awesome to watch. Um, and so I'm using that as an example because after watching her do these handstands on, she started on a wall. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. So I had to literally start with my husband bringing my feet up to the wall because I couldn't even get my feet up to the wall. Well, now I can get my feet up to the wall. And now I'm trying to move my feet away from the wall, but I'm also trying to work on handstand push-ups. So I have to still do handstand push-ups with my feet on the wall. And so it was a progression I had to do. I had to pick the starting point, and I needed assistance with doing it. I needed my husband to bring my feet up to the wall. That's okay. He thought it was hilarious until he tried to do it and he couldn't do it. So then I think it brought him down a notch. But so some of the modifications, if all of you that are doing this, if you are able to, stand up on one leg right now and see how it feels to stand on one leg. Pick your right or your left, I don't care. And as you're standing there and you're like, all right, I got this, I'm doing fine. Now close your eyes. And taking that sense away, you'll see how much harder it is to balance on one leg. And so simply just standing on one leg when you're brushing your teeth is an awesome way to kill two birds with one stone. Now close your eyes. Or if you're stirring your pasta or whatever, stand on one leg. Don't close your eyes when you're doing that, but challenge your body. Put a pillow underneath your foot or a couch cushion. If some of you have access at a gym to like a Bosu ball, try balancing on that. Just start with really simple stuff and then make it progressively harder. And when I do squat on a Bosu, sometimes I have really great days where I got it. I am steady, I'm strong, I feel great. And then there's days I just can't get it. And so sometimes I have to put a finger on a wall or on another machine so I feel a little more stable. That's fine. The progressions you can do, you can push yourself either by removing support. So if you're doing a single leg squat, maybe you can only go down 2 inches without your hips. That's why I said put yourself in front of a mirror or film yourself. That's always super humbling to have someone film you. Stand on one leg, do a little mini squat. Are you able to keep your hips nice and level as you go down and come up? Then great. Maybe next time take your finger off the wall or the table, and can you do that same 2-inch drop without any assistance? Or now can you add get a little deeper and a little deeper? Or do 2 legs. Can you do a regular squat and get your butt all the way down to a chair? So don't be afraid to make modifications. Push-ups, put your knees down or start on a wall. And hip dips, that assessment where you're doing one leg up and one leg down, the majority of you aren't even going to be able to get one of them. And that's okay. So start simple. Just do a regular hip dip and shoot for, I always say 3 sets of 15 is a great number, but if that means you can only do 3 sets of 3 in the beginning, fine, it's a start. I don't know if that answers that, Seth.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think that, in programming, we may see, oh my gosh, I've got 3 sets of 15 or whatever it is, and almost allow that to scare us away from even getting started. And I highly encourage you, and I agree with what Denise said, get started. If you can only do 3 sets of 3 or 3 sets of 5 or 2 sets of 5, whatever it is, just getting started is the most important thing. and making progress, and just understanding that you have to start from where you're at. Just like we talk about with our running and getting started, it's, most of us started around Memorial Day if we're training for an October, November race, and we all have these visions of where we want to be right on race day. Well, that's great, and we're going to work to get there, but we're not there right now, and that's okay. We're not expected to be there right now. So take the modifications if you need it, and I would say a lot of times, especially for us guys, ego can get in the way. Throw that out the door and just realize that we're all starting from different places. But I think we had a few questions and comments. So Karen asks, Denise, is there a benefit between using resistance bands versus weights / kettlebells, or is it just more exercise dependent?
So a couple years ago, I would have said no. If you do resistance bands, that's great. If you do weights, that's great. But there is a difference between the two. And to highlight this, we are obsessed with space travel here in our household. My daughter just got back from space camp. And what I've learned in some of this research is that because, let's take a woman that's over 50 years old. Women over 50 have a tendency to start having bone breakdown. So it's called osteopenia, and it could progress to osteoporosis. Some of the studies they've done through NASA, which I think this is super cool, is they've sent women over 50 up into space on purpose and what had them train with resistance bands because they can't use weight because there's no weight up in space. And they measured the changes in their bone density when they came back down. And the women who did nothing, no resistance bands, had significant decreases in their osteoporosis or osteopenia levels, or their bone density levels, I should say. But women who did resistance training were able to maintain some of that bone density. It wasn't as great as being on the earth. So resistance bands certainly have their place. And sometimes if we would work out in our basement, we may not have weights or kettlebells. So resistance bands are a really great option to not have to go stock up on a bunch of stuff. But don't be afraid to use even your body weight to help work on strength training. Because that effect, we are very, very lucky that we have gravity. We take gravity for granted a lot of times. Most of us fear gravity because we feel like it's going to pull us to the ground and we may fall. That usually only happens to me when I've had too many glasses of wine or I'm wearing high heels. So just use resistance bands, but also mix it up with weights and kettlebells just for something different and a different way to load your bones. Stress fractures happen because we put too much stress on our bones. So things like weights and kettlebells are great ways to load your bones and be safe with it. And resistance bands are just another alternative. But again, don't be afraid to use your body weight. Use squats, push-ups, lunges, where you may not have any weight on you. That is great too. So yes, it's exercise dependent on what type of exercise you're doing, but mix it up. Use the resistance bands as well as the kettlebells. There's a really great workout you can do with both resistance bands and kettlebells or weights, where I don't know if you guys know what the negative is. It's where, like, if you were doing a bicep curl, so you'd pull your weights up, but then you would slowly lower the weights back down to the starting position. So maybe you go up in 1 and down in 3. That's a great way to work out to train your muscles to help with running. That is just something a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback on Denise's comments, which I agree with wholeheartedly. I think too, I mean, a lot of people travel and might not have access to a gym while they're traveling, or maybe just the hotel gym is just not up to par. So I think if you have things like resistance bands, super bands, those types of things, it's great for you to be able to knock out a workout in your own room and to work through a full range of motion. I know that a lot of people swear by exercise bands across all sports. I mean, for example, Tom Brady, that's all he trains with, right, Denise? And so I think that there's a time and place for all that, but it's certainly not necessary to get started. As Denise mentioned, just being able to handle your own body weight is a great starting point. And so,
absolutely.
Yeah, and so Lisa has a few things here. Lisa's in the Muskegon, Michigan area. Do you have any trainer connections here or in the Grand Rapids area? And then to piggyback on that, Lisa's 52 and has a sharp pain in her left knee when she goes upstairs, squats, and sometimes when she's running. She changed from the run, and I'm familiar with these challenges that Lisa's describing to us here. But so she's changed from a run to a run-walk strategy, which she wants to continue with, obviously the goal of running the race, but she doesn't want to injure her knee. Any exercises or strength training options, Denise, that she should focus on or avoid?
Well, first of all, I'm a Michigan girl, so I was born and raised in Michigan. So I have some family that lives in Grand Rapids. So Lisa, I'll reach out to them and see if they know anyone in the Muskegon or Grand Rapids area. So I will take care of that for you, and then I will contact Seth with any information I find, if that works okay for you guys.
Great.
And then as far as that sharp pain in your left knee when you go upstairs, squats, sometimes when you're running, a lot of times that is, I don't know if you can answer this, but if you notice the pain with stairs and squats worsening after you run, or if it's always, whether you run or not, the pain is there. Because if we find that as your mileage is progressing, the pain in the left knee with squats and stairs is also getting worse, then we may be looking at a technique issue. And so a quick little thing you can do is have somebody film you from running. They stand there with the phone and you run past it. Maybe like the long ways of the phone, not up and down. My daughter calls that hamburger versus hot dog. I don't know. I don't get it. But so long ways, the landscape way, and put it on slow motion and run past your camera. They don't have to pan. They don't have to follow you. You literally are just running past it. And go back and watch that slow motion video and look where your foot is landing in relationship to the rest of your body. So if I were to draw a straight line down your body, like ear over shoulder over hip, would your foot be landing ahead of that? You may find that you're overstriding, and that would become a technique issue. So you could look at something like that. But as far as, and that's usually the number one reason people have pain with running, that translates into squats and stairs. So, but as far as avoiding anything, if squats hurt you, I wouldn't do them. I think there's other ways we can strengthen your quad without doing it. But if you're like, well, it's not really the squats that hurts, it's that the tissues are already irritated from the run, then that's where we have to step back and look. And I would say strength training that you could make sure you focus on is making sure you're giving your hamstrings as much love as you are giving your quads. Most runners forget their hamstrings, and they are, I'm going to say hamstrings are the most important muscle that we use when we run, but most of us don't know how to use them effectively. We try to kick our foot through as we're running versus using our hamstrings to actually pull the foot up off the ground. So again, that's a technique issue, but make sure your hamstrings are getting some good love. The other thing that I would recommend that I think a lot of runners don't take the time to do is soft tissue work. So using a foam roller or a lacrosse ball, at the end of the day, you don't have to do it right after your run, because I know how that goes when you're trying to squeeze everything in, but maybe when you have your glass of wine and you're talking to your husband, or you're watching your show at the end of the night, listening to podcasts, whatever you do at the end of the night to wind down, get that lacrosse ball into your quads, especially that lower part of your quad, and clean some of that stuff out. Get a massage if you need an excuse. You could say, Denise told me I have to get a massage every 4 weeks.
That's right.
Use the great profession of massage therapy that I, again, think we take for granted. Let those massage therapists help clean out some of those restrictions that will limit our movement over time.
That's great information. Thanks, Denise.
Sure.
So then, Lisa, I'll connect with Denise, and we'll see what we find out up in your neck of the woods.
I love Michigan, so you can always find excuses to go back there.
So we are coming up to the hour. So if anybody has any last minute questions, now would be the time to type those in. And then I would just ask, as we were talking about, we move into tomorrow and the rest of our programming, how do we, Denise, what do you recommend in terms of implementing this? So you said 3 times a week. Should they do it on their run days, on their rest days, their cross training? Like, how would you recommend they best implement this moving forward?
You know what? You got to do what's best for you. There are days on my long run days that I just don't have any more time to give. And there's days that my husband's like, you know what, I'll take the kids, you go do your run, that I'm like, I still have 20 minutes before they're back. I could get some push-ups in here. So do what's best for you. And some people ask me, should I do it before the run, after the run? Again, that's kind of personal preference. And sometimes if I get on the ground to start doing push-ups after a long run, sometimes I don't get up. So I think that you have to do what's best for you. So look at your schedule. Seth creates awesome programs for you, and sometimes he gives you time in those programs. So take a look at your schedule, talk to Seth, see what would work best for you, that you aren't feeling overwhelmed. The last thing I want you guys to do is be mad that I'm adding even more to your plate. I want you to see the value in this. So don't be afraid to talk to Seth to be like, all right, what if I tweak, if I take a mile here, maybe I add it on another day. And sometimes you might end up strength training 2 days in a row. Sometimes that happens and it's okay. Just don't keep doing that every week, or mix it up. So maybe your strength training looks like, all right, my strength training this week is going to be some agility work. I'm going to do some hopscotch with my kids, some push-ups, and some box jumps or curb jumps, because that's all I got time for today. That's great. So do what works best for your schedule, and tell Seth I said it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And to everybody who's on tonight's webinar, and for those of you who are going to be listening at a later time and date, if it means cutting a run short by a mile or so to get in your warm up, to get in your cool down, and to get in your strength work, you have my permission now to do that. I think those ancillary things like warming up, cooling down, strength work, foam rolling, stretching, all the above really are integral parts of a successful training program. And I feel like a lot of times, and I'll throw myself into this statement, in the past, I felt like I had to get the mileage that was on the program done, and it usually came to the detriment of some of these other things, and I ended up getting hurt or just not performing as well. So you have my permission to cut the run short. We're all time crunch busy professionals and individuals, so just do what you need to do to get it in and what's realistic for your life and lives, and I think it's all great. So I think what Denise said about strengthening our bodies, making our bodies more injury resilient, and just overall, resilient in nature is important and is critical. And it's more important than squeezing in that last mile or that last 20 minutes of your run, because I think it's all great for our bodies, and it's going to help us stay healthy and stay running and be consistent, which, as we all know, consistency leads to greater gains. So with that said, we are 1 minute past the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and cut Denise loose. But you do see that Denise, here on this last slide, she has her contact information there. And so if there's anything that, any questions that didn't get asked tonight, or for those who are going to be joining the recording later and checking this out, feel free to reach out to either myself or Denise with any questions. Denise works with people not only locally, but virtually as well, like myself. So you can work with her one-on-one and take advantage of her expertise, which is great. So Denise, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your expertise and this great knowledge. And I encourage everybody on the call and who's going to be listening to take on this challenge. If strength training is not a part of your routine, make it your routine, and this is a great starting point that Denise has laid out for us. So Denise, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night. Thank you to everybody who joined. And with that,
thanks,
you can check out
Seth, and good luck to all of you.
Thank you. And you can check out the recording. It'll be up later this week on the YouTube page, but we'll be sending out the link to that as well. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you later, and best of luck with your training.